there are certain dynamics and relationships that have continuity. You know, Sam and myself, Sam Raimi, the director, and we have a certain banter or dynamic that's fun and funny, and I love collaborating with him.
And Toby has besides being an excellent actor, maybe the best of his generation, he has a quality that only movie stars have, which is you feel connected to him.
But I went and talked to Sam, and he just talked about it from the standpoint of character. He really wanted this to come from character, you know, these real kind of people, and a coming-of-age story about this kind of ordinary kid who becomes a superhero.
He's a real person. He's one of us. He's a kid from Brooklyn who doesn't have a lot of money. He's doesn't get the girls. He's got acne. He's fairly average-looking kid. He's well, slightly better than average.
How do we press this? How do we make it more exciting, more fun? How do we evolve the character and make it a rich story?
You recently expressed interest in returning to that particular franchise, to Spider-Man 4. You said you'd be up for it.
Well, I didn't think it was possible, but after jumping back in with the multiverse, I realized that just like Doctor Strange does, anything is possible now. So I'm completely open to it.
And does doing the 2 pictures in between prepare you to jump back into the giant machinery of doing a 4th movie?
Yeah, it's great.
Following the release of No Way Home, fans have grown eager to see more of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's respective Spider-Man. In Tobey's case, rumours and speculation began swirling of a 4th installment, with Sam Raimi returning to direct. Whilst all of these rumours should be taken with a grain of salt, it got me thinking of the original Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4 we were going to get back in 2011. So I began to do a deep dive. Around 3 to 4 months before the release of Spider-Man 3, Variety reported that Columbia executives had been in negotiations with David Cope, who originally wrote the first film, to return and pen the possible 4th installment. Of course, the green light for a possible 4th installment was all going to be dependent on the box office performance of Spider-Man 3. And well, it was pretty obvious that Spider-Man 3 was going to do extremely well, earning over $895 million in the box office. And despite the mixed reviews, the money seemed to be enough for Sony to greenlight a 4th installment. September 5th, 2008. Deadline reported that both Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire were returning to do the 4th film. The article also states that they didn't have a deal in place for Kirsten Dunst to return, though it states that they weren't planning on replacing her. The report also claims that Sony was also planning to do a 5th installment, and they were hoping to shoot it at the same time as 4, though I would personally take this part with a grain of salt, considering we don't get a whole lot of mentions about a 5th installment anywhere other than a few small mentions around the internet. They also brought on James Vanderbilt to come and pen the script for the film. With everything slowly coming together, Sony Pictures would post this infamous tweet: Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4 to be released on the 6th of May 2011. So, what happened? Of course, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes discourse that ultimately led to the cancellation and subsequent reboot of the franchise. In another Deadline report I found, it states that filming was to begin in February, then it got pushed to March, and then it got pushed again. And then ultimately, no one knew when filming was going to begin. An email was sent out to the Spider-Man 4 VFX team that read, "Hey there, we were just notified that our schedule is pushing. We will not be starting as planned. We do not know how long we are pushing. The studio has every intention of making the movie, but we no longer have a confirmed start date. Again, I'm terribly sorry, but Sam Raimi has story issues that need to be resolved before we are ready to shoot." The production was getting pushed back due to Sam Raimi feeling unsatisfied with the story of the film. Besides James Vanderbilt, they had brought on playwright David Lindsay-Abaire to work on the script. And then they brought on Gary Ross. And finally they brought on Spider-Man 2 and 3 writer Alvin Sargent to work on the script. Alongside the constant rewrites, Sam Raimi began to clash with Sony Pictures in an attempt to get more creative control over the production, something that he lost during the making of Spider-Man 3. In an interview with Vulture, he stated, "It was simply that we had a deadline and I couldn't get the story to work on a level that I wanted it to work. I was very unhappy with Spider-Man 3 and I wanted to make Spider-Man 4 to end on a very high note, the best Spider-Man of them all. But I couldn't get the script together in time due to my own failings, and I said to Sony, I don't want to make a movie that is less than great." So far, we have covered the production issue that plagued Spider-Man 4's development. But what was the film actually going to be about? Since its cancellation, a whole lot of information has come out over the years, such as bits of the potential story, casting information, costume designs, and even storyboards from storyboard artist Jeffrey Henderson. What we don't have a clear idea of is Peter Parker's life post-Spider-Man 3. With all of these pieces, we have a somewhat clear idea as to what this film was going to look like. The fourth installment would have seen Spider-Man facing off against the Vulture. In Raimi's version, the Vulture would have been a former private contractor who used to work with the government, earning the nickname Vulture because he left nothing but bones behind. Ben Kingsley was originally considered for this role, but Raimi eventually landed on and casted John Malkovich to play Adrian Toomes. The costume for the Vulture looks about comic accurate and equally Raimi-esque. We also would be introduced to Felicia Hardy with Angelina Jolie, Kate Beckinsale, and Anne Hathaway in contention to take on the role, with Sam settling on Anne Hathaway, though Angelina Jolie's likeness was used for the storyboards. With Felicia Hardy, it was rumoured that instead of Black Cat, she would have taken on the mantle of the Vultress, implying that she would be working alongside the Vulture, though Raimi later clarified that her character would be a bit more comic accurate. She also would have been a potential love interest, just judging by the storyboards, possibly taking on a similar role to Gwen Stacy. There was also a possibility that we would have seen Dylan Baker return as Dr. Connors, and that we could finally see him transform into the Lizard. The movie would begin with a montage of Spider-Man rounding up familiar villains such as Shocker, Prowler, and while Spider-Man is bringing Mysterio into the police station, his fishbowl head falls off, revealing Bruce Campbell. Yes, no Sam Raimi Spider-Man film is complete without Bruce Campbell. The film would then begin with Adrian Toomes being sent to prison for crimes he's been scapegoated for, but ultimately escaping, becoming a problem for Peter in the second half of the film. There is a leaked animatic of the final fight between Spider-Man and Vulture, which I have linked below. It is interesting to see many of the potential concepts from this film end up in other Spider-Man films later down the line. The movie script also went through many different iterations, and I think that's where the problem lied. He was looking to create the perfect story. Raimi wasn't particularly happy with how things turned out with Spider-Man 3, and he took this opportunity of a fourth film to get the series back on track, but due to the constant story issues and the May 2011 deadline, it became too much. And from that, he decided to leave the project. And well, you know the rest. Who knows if we might get a Spider-Man 4? Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire both have expressed interest in returning to that world, and the fans are definitely down to see more of Tobey's Spider-Man swinging through the skyline of New York. As Raimi said, anything is possible.